Hi, pre-calculus students. Welcome to section 4.2 video B, still the unit circle, of course. So we already did on video A, steps 1 and 2. Here's step 3. How do you find any of the 6 trig values for theta when theta is not on the unit circle? Meaning that the angle is negative, right? Like a negative pi over 4, there's no negative angles listed on the unit circle. Or when there's been more than one revolution, right? So such as 19 pi over 6. Obviously, there's more than 2 pi in this angle. And so this angle is not listed on the unit circle because it only shows values for one revolution. So what do? A, we simply rotate the angle and use the first steps, 1 or 2, that we already learned. Or we remove full rotations, and then we have a coterminal angle. So the sine, cosine, and tangent and the reciprocal trig values are the same because you're at the same location on the circle. And so we're going to try both of these. So example number 20, let's say you have been given an angle of a negative pi over 4. And you are asked to find the cosine, sine, and tangent of that. So in this case, let's just rotate a negative pi over 4, right? So we'll rotate downward, right? A negative pi over 4, which makes my reference angle pi over 4, because the reference angle is always positive. So cosine of pi over 4, right? In the first quadrant, is the square root of 2 over 2, and sine is also the square root of 2 over 2, right? And tangent is 1, right? Because there's my pi over 4 finger. Square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2 is 1. Okay, now I just have to check the signs, positive or negative, of my trig values based on the fact that I'm actually in the fourth quadrant. So cosine will still be positive because the x's are positive. My sine will be negative because my y's are. Tangent will be negative because it is sine divided by cosine and negative divided by a positive. What if you have been given, they want sine of 19 pi over 6. Could I rotate 19 pi over 6 and then get my reference angle? I sure could, but I don't feel like doing that. So I'm going to get a coterminal angle to 19 pi over 6 that is on my unit circle between 0 and 2 pi and answer the same question. Coterminal angles have different measures, but the same location, so they have the same sine, cosine, and tangent. So here's what I'm going to do is I have 19 pi over 6, and I'm going to subtract 2 pi. Notice that I need a common denominator. So I'm going to call my 2 pi 12 pi over 6. And I now am at 7 pi over 6. That, in fact, is on the unit circle. And so if I answer the question, what is sine of 7 pi over 6, I will have answered the question, what is sine of 19 pi over 6? Okay, so let's go ahead and draw ourselves a little picture here. I'm going to rotate 7 pi over 6. Pi over 6 is 30 degrees, and there's 3 of those each. In each quadrant, I'm going to rotate 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I am pi over 6 past pi. My reference angle is pi over 6. So here we go. Sine of pi over 6 in the first quadrant is 1/2. Because I am actually in the third quadrant, the y's are negative. I have a negative 1/2. There's my final answer. Let's see some other examples. What else might you see? First of all, what if you are asked, on number 6, you're asked to find the 6 trig values given that x, there's a point on the circle where x is a negative 8/17 and y is a 15/17. Now, just so you know, they should say it, but in this first section, this is a unit circle because the radius is 1. If I did the Pythagorean theorem, if I squared negative 8/17 here and 15/17 here and added them up and took the square root, I would get 1. I would get a hypotenuse of 1. You're welcome to do it. I just want you to know that in this section, I think it's like 6 through 10, something like that, every circle you see is a unit circle, which means that cosine is my x and sine is my y. There we go. So cosine is my x, negative 8/17. Sine is my y, 15/17. Tangent is y, sine divided by cosine. So here we go, sine divided by cosine. Rather than divide by this fraction, I will multiply by the reciprocal. And the 17s cancel, and I get a negative 15/8. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. And cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. There we go. Since I have a little bit of space, I am going to prove right here that the radius was 1, even though I didn't need to. I'm going to square. This is an x, negative 8/17. I'm going to square this leg, which is 15/17. And I'm going to add them up and take the square root, and that will be the hypotenuse. So here we go. So just throwing it in here. There's a lot of ways I could do this. There we go. So notice what I did. I just squared. It's hard to see. It's a little dark out right now. I do get a 1, and the square root of 1 is 1, showing that this really is a unit circle. So I could call x my cosine and sine my y. Now, what if they give you something a bit more unusual? What if they tell you, they don't give you the angle for t, but they tell you that cosine is 4/5, and they want you to find cosine at pi minus t, okay? So let's go ahead and draw an angle t in the first quadrant. Because cosine is positive, that angle t could definitely be in the first quadrant, and right, and its ratio could be 4/5, okay? So here's my angle t. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rotate pi minus t. So I'm going to rotate pi and then minus t. There we go. So notice this is pi minus t, and here is my reference angle. So because these angles are the same, my value for pi minus t must be the same. But because I'm located in the second quadrant, cosine must be negative. Okay, let's try another one. Draw the same picture. Let's put our t in the first quadrant since it's positive. Here's our t. Okay, now let's rotate pi plus t. So I'll rotate pi, right, and I'll go t more. My reference angle is a t. These angles are the same, so my cosine must have the same value. But again, because I'm in the third quadrant, it must be negative. All right, just wanted to make sure on your graphing calculator, you know how to find values for the reciprocal functions. You do have a sine, cosine, and tangent button on your calculator. you do not have a cotangent. They are asking for cotangent of a negative 0.9. This is in radians. This is a radian value. So we're really only in degrees unless they say. So check your mode on your calculator. Make sure you're in radian mode, okay? And here's what I'm gonna do. I know that at the same angle, negative 0.9, that cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. And so what I'm actually gonna do is 1 over tangent of the same angle and take the reciprocal, and that will give me cotangent. So I have 1 divided by tangent of a negative 0.9. Don't know again if you can see that. There we go. Hit enter. Negative 0.794 is my final answer. And there we go. We covered quite a nice variety for section 4.2 A and B.